Good evening and welcome to our forum for the Kansas City Council 1st, 2nd, and 6th districts at large in the June 20th Kansas City municipal election. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte Counties, local Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, social justice committees, the Council for Neighborhood Leaders, and the South Kansas City Alliance. I am Anitra Steele, and I am a member of the League. The League of Women Voters is a trusted grassroots, nonpartisan organization whose members do hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or political parties, we are directly involved in sharing the important issues. Our mission is to empower voters and to defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to participate. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like you to know the other League members volunteering with us. Elizabeth Darr is our timekeeper, and our Zoom is monitored by Donna Hauk, a 50-year member of the League. I lead our forum's admin team. The public has sent in the questions via the League's website, LWVKC.org, and they have been given to our moderator. Tonight, we welcome guest moderator Mary Sanchez, senior reporter for KCPT PBS covering civic affairs. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you for all the candidates for being here. Delighted to join you. Your vote matters. Tonight, we'll learn about candidates for the Kansas City Council on your June 20th ballot, who, along with the Kansas City Mayor, set the overall policy and budget for Kansas City, Missouri. Council members serve a 4-year term. The city is divided into 6 districts and 6 at-large districts. This makes for a total of 12 council members plus the mayor. Every voter in Kansas City votes for 7 council members, their own council member, and the 6 at-large seats. So we will all have a role in voting for these at-large candidates, just so that's understood. Forums last approximately 2 hours. We may end up shifting that a little bit this evening. One of our candidates needs to be at a prior commitment, so understand that that was prearranged and understood. And then we've had some that apparently aren't able to join us this evening. So we may make this an abbreviated. Anyway, we appreciate your time and your patience. And, hopefully we can just learn as much as possible about the candidates and hear their views. So again, we may make this a little shorter than the 2 hours. I'll ask each candidate the same question and selected from the subjects that were submitted by the public. And we'll kind of bounce back and forth between each candidate of who answers which one first. That's kind of like a random rotation that we had set up. You've got 90 seconds to respond. And then if there's a follow-up question, that will go to just for 30 seconds. And then a 2-minute closing will also offer that to each candidate that's present. Every candidate that is running for this office has been invited, and we welcome everyone. So let's see. Why don't we go ahead and just do some introductions. For the at-large 2nd district, Janey Manley is with us. She wants to raise her hand, and she's in the red. And then at-large 6th district is Andrea Bough. And Andrea will need to leave after about a half an hour of questions because she has a prior commitment, but then she's going to try and return to this session. So you might see her absent later, and that is why. Let's see. It is being recorded, and you can come back and watch this at the League of Women Voters of Kansas City.org. It's LWVKC.org. Candidates, please answer the question asked and stick to the topic. There will be no rebuttals. So it's kind of not like what you've seen on CNN with presidential forums, but you can go back to an issue during your 2-minute closing. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. As a council member, what will be your priorities? Janey? Why don't you go ahead
Hi,
and
my
take
name is Janey Manley, and I'm running for 2nd District at large. My biggest priority on City Council is ensuring that poor and working class people have a voice in City Council. I've been organizing for the last 3 years, and I've been hosting City Hall meetings with City Council members and pushing to make sure that the priorities of poor and working class people, whether that's housing, truly affordable housing, whether it's the needs that are in our community, but that those are prioritized. And I'll continue to do that on City Council. To me, that looks like knocking on neighbors' doors, asking them what they need, asking them how we get there, and building alongside the people in our communities. Once we start to do that, we can start to make policies that are reflective of the people who live in our neighborhoods. That's the commitment that I've made for the last 3 years, and it's the commitment that I'm going to keep making as a City Council member, because I believe that the people in our communities actually know what we need. So the priorities to me is, yes, truly affordable housing. I also think we need robust and reliable public transportation across our city. I also think we need really well-funded sidewalks in our neighborhoods. I want to see our city start prioritizing the people who live in Kansas City that make this place our home. And I'm really excited to see us do that. I think it starts by talking to the people first and then creating solutions with them beside us, and really making sure that we are making solutions that are reflective of the needs of the people who live in our city. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Andrea, same question, your priorities.
Thank you. I am Andrea Bough. I'm the current 6th District at large City Council person, and I am running for re-election. I guess the good thing, there won't be a need for rebuttal because Janey and I are not running against each other. But my priorities will be really a continuation of what I've done the last 4 years on the council. We will be looking to continue basic services and the improvement of those basic services. We have improved the street resurfacing, street maintenance, sidewalk improvements, but those are things that we need to continue to do in all areas of the city. Secondly, we need to address, as Janey said, affordable housing. In this term, we have, for the first time, funded the Housing Trust Fund through both the ARP funds as well as a GO bond. But we only have funded for the ARP fund, $25 million and $50 million to the GO bonds. We need to fund that with, one, a continuing funding source, and two, with a lot more money. And third, we need to address violence prevention and intervention through things like the $30 million that my colleague Councilwoman Park Shaw introduced and the council passed for programs that go into the community. And I'm running out of time, so I will leave it at that, and hopefully we can discuss these more in detail.
Yeah, thank you, because actually some of those questions are, or some of those topics are in there. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. It's a little odd, I guess. Andrea, you go ahead and take this, because we were just kind of pass it back and forth. As an at-large member of the City Council, how would you represent, or I guess how have you been representing all the residents of the city?
Well, that's something I take very seriously as an at-large council member. You know, I live in the Brookside area. I'm responsible to all of the 6th District, all of the residents that I live near, but it's also important for me to talk with all residents. One of the things that I championed on in this first term was right to counsel for evictions. And so those are areas that there was a great need, not only before, but especially during the pandemic. And I talked with groups like the KC tenants that Janey has been very involved with, and to seek out those organizations and those groups throughout the city that have needs. And so as an at-large council member, you have to go around to other areas of the city and to work with your council members from other districts in order to make sure you're meeting the needs of all of Kansas Cityans. And it's just about listening, and it's about working with other groups that may not be your neighbors right next door, but are your neighbors in the city of Kansas City.
Great, thank you. Janey, same question. How would you represent the interests of all members of, all residents all around Kansas City?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in the Northland, and I was housing insecure most of my life. So I've jumped around the entire Northland since I was born. So I know a lot of the Northland. But the last 3 years I've been organizing with KC Tenants, which is the citywide tenant union. And a lot of the work we've done has been to ensure that the people closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. We know that the people who deal with housing insecurity the most, while I am a Northlander who has, are people who live on the east side, who are dealing with unsafe living conditions, and truly unaffordable rents, right? So that is happening in Midtown and on the east side. So a lot of the work that I've done for the last 3 years is knocking on neighbors' doors in those areas. I have family who lives in South Kansas City, and I also see neighborhoods like Hickman Mills who have a lot of tenants, 80% tenant, yet and still they struggle to pay their bills, right? So the work that I do, because I organize with the citywide tenant union, has been across the city. And the work that I will continue to do, whether it's around housing, public transportation, issues around childcare, whatever it is, it will be across the city, because I know that the people in our city have more in common than we do as differences. And if we really start building together and looking for solutions for the city as a whole, we can change that. It's actually why I decided to run at large instead of in district, because I knew I could not represent my truest values if I was only talking about a single district. I lived in North Kansas City when KCPS lost accreditation, and I watched students flood to North Kansas City schools in order to get access to education. When we realize that everything that happens in the city impacts all of us, we start changing the way we move, and that's what I want to do.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and jump to the issue of crime and crime prevention. Andrea had mentioned that, and I think it might be a good topic to discuss. So as this is framed, it's 2023 is already turning out to be a record-setting year for homicides, and I must say that reclumped. I think, what was it, 1990, during the crack epidemic was when we had some really, really high murder rates. The other thing to look at, though, is also just what police call skin to bullet. Non-fatal shootings are so very, very high and very trauma-inducing for communities and families. Given that this is where we are right now, we already are on a record-setting trend. What new efforts need to be made to reduce these numbers, to reduce that impact of murders and people just frankly getting shot or being fearful of being shot? Andrea, you want to go ahead?
Sure. I think that it's the efforts that we're making with respect to violence interruption and intervention. As we all know, as we all talk about, Kansas City doesn't have control of their police department. So we can't direct the policy of the police or what they do, but we have to stop using that as an excuse about how we address violence and violent crime, because there are some things that we can do as a city, and there are steps that we are starting to take. The mayor's office is leading an effort to work with the prosecutors, the police department, but I think probably 2 years ago now, we passed as a city the KC Blueprint for Violence, and it looks at a multi-sector approach using the faith community, school districts, business community, all of the aspects of our community in the city to come together and address violent crime. But that also includes mental health. Before we put someone in our municipal jail, we have to address those issues before violence occurs. And that is what the $30 million that the council adopted will do. It puts that in the hands of the community partners that are best able to address violence prevention and interruption. And so I think that is what we have to do, is stop the violent crime before it happens.
Thank you. Janey, same question. And I don't want to repeat all my whole leading because I was a bit rambling, but what new efforts do you think need to be made to reduce some of the violent crime that we're seeing, particularly gun violence?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see what KC 360 does. I know that people are applying for those funds, and I'm excited to see what happens with that program. The things that I want to prioritize is, first, I want to say that the root cause of crime is actually poverty. It's people responding to their life of crisis. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I started organizing because I had to move my abuser back in with me in order to pay the bills. And if we start investing in the people who live in our city, we can really change what it means to feel safe in our communities, right? That's why I started organizing for housing. It's because I didn't have any other option if me and my babies were going to stay safe, right? I know young people who are helping pay the bills in their families' houses in order to keep a roof over their heads, right? So if we're going to start talking about like, how do we reduce crime? Yes, it is livable wages. It is truly affordable housing. It's also after school programs and childcare for our babies. I think we should really start having those types of conversations. We know that KC Public Schools is talking about putting a bond on the ballot so that they can start investing in their schools. How are we as city leaders rallying behind our public school districts and saying that our students deserve investment, and we have to believe that their education and their needs are super valuable, right? KCPS Schools has also fought to make sure that we get truly affordable housing in our city, because they know, we know, right? If we don't actually change the way that our city invests things, we will continue to live in this cycle. We've lived in COVID-19 for 3 years, and the reflection of that is our crime rate. So how are we investing in our people so that we can start to heal?
Thank you. You know, the next question I'll take is really kind of related. So, you know, this kind of keeps us along somewhat of a same path. And Janey, I'll go ahead and allow you to answer first. What would be your priority and first steps as a council member, if you're elected, to try and end or at least begin to get a better handle on our issues of houselessness in Kansas City?
Yeah, I've already started those steps. I was one of the people who fought for the $50 million for the Housing Trust Fund. I knocked on neighbors' doors. I asked them to vote yes on that. I have fought for the Tenants' Bill of Rights to make sure that people get to stay in their homes. I fought for a right to counsel to ensure that people were not being evicted from their homes, but also had a fighting chance to stay in their homes, right? I will continue to organize to redefine the definition of affordable housing in our city so that people do not believe that we have to pay $1,200 for a 1-bedroom apartment. Instead, we get truly affordable rents, right? I will fight to make sure that we have an ongoing housing trust fund revenue source, right? Because I know that the housing trust fund can change the way that we create housing in our city. I will also be pushing for things like municipal social housing, which is democratically controlled, universally accessible, and publicly backed. It ensures that the people in our communities are making decisions about where they live, right? We saw this during COVID-19, where we had a huge spike of people losing their homes and living on the streets. We actually have to ensure that those people are a part of the conversation. I've been doing that for the last 3 years. I've been building alongside poor and working class people struggling to make the bills, and I will continue to do that. And I'll do that because I know that that's the thing that would have changed my life when I was living in a 1-bedroom cabin, when I was living in a tent, and it would have changed my life when I birthed my babies. And I think if we're really going to start investing in people, it starts by believing them and believing that they actually can make decisions about their lives. We just have to actually give them the tools to do it.
Thank you. And do we still have Andrea with us, or did she need to move on to her next meeting?
She said she had to go through security.
That's right.
So I think since we only have our one candidate, which we appreciate, perhaps should just let Janey make a closing statement and conclude our forum.
That would be fine. Yeah. Janey, go ahead. You have the floor for 2 minutes.
My name is Janey Manley, and I'm running for Kansas City City Council in the 2nd District at large. I'm running to be the first Black person to represent the Northland in Kansas City City Council. I was born and raised in the Northland of Kansas City, Missouri. My grandma's house served as my base house, and it's where I went to school from. But other than that, I jumped around a lot. Like I said, I lived in a 1-bedroom cabin. I went from apartment to apartment. It wasn't until 7th grade when my mom got a union job that she was able to help us buy, or she was able to buy us a house. What I learned from her is that there is too much at stake for us to be fighting as individuals. We actually have to come together as a union and build change for our city. So at the right place and right time, I joined KC Tenants, the citywide tenant union, and it changed my life. I started organizing alongside my neighbors to change the way that this city runs. I started watching committee meetings at 3 o'clock in the morning, looking for real solutions for how this city becomes a better place for a single mom. And really, what I started doing was asking my neighbors how we build solutions together. When I'm sitting on city council, I am committed to continuing to knock on neighbors' doors, to build alongside the people who live and work and play and stay in this city, because I think it is the only way that my kids don't become another statistic, but actually are able to see themselves in the future of Kansas City, Missouri. When we talk about how do we change things in our city, I believe we can. I don't believe it is just through policy. I don't believe it is through a single vote. I believe it is through knocking on neighbors' doors, building with one another, and deciding there is too much at stake for us to walk away from the conversation. I believe that that is the truth when we are in the Northland, when we are in South Kansas City, when we are on the east side, when we are on the west side. When we start knocking on each other's doors, when we start building alongside each other, when we start saying, I'm curious about your experience and what's happening in your side of Kansas City, how can we build together? It changes the way that people interact with one another. We stop fighting for scraps and start building for a future. And that's what I want to do when I'm sitting on city council. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us. I really appreciate it. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you very much. And has Andrea made it through the security to perhaps get her back, or should we just go ahead and
I think this was when she said she had to leave for a period of time.
okay, that's what I thought. Well,
And I don't know what happened to the other candidates who said they would be here. I'm sure if Janey recognizes the number of emails we sent you in trying to set this up, the fact that we couldn't assemble a panel is disappointing for the educational event we were working on providing. So I think since she's given her last 2-minute closings, I will close out this forum. Thank you, Mary, for giving up your evening. You still got some sunshine left. But we do appreciate your being able to give us your trained insight as a political reporter in choosing the questions and framing the questions from the public that you wanted to ask. Thank you to the audience that are there. I'm sure, given our records, many people will be looking at the YouTube on Monday night, trying to figure out who they're going to vote for. We were astounded at the number of people during the primary that the last couple of days we got over 1,000 views of our primary candidate forums. So we are reaching many more people than I'm not sure the candidates realize. But thank you, audience, for the thought-provoking questions and your interest in the June 20th Kansas City municipal elections. Please take a moment to share with our candidate forums via your Facebook page next door and other favorite social media channels. And remember, for complete voting and candidate information, visit LWVKC.org and vote411.org, where candidates have responded to questions, and you can put the candidates side by side and see how they answered specific questions, which is also very informative. Thank you very much and good night.